Color in the background and everything. The topic from yesterday was true humility precedes true bhakti. And if you have those two, humility and bhakti, Mam ekam sharanam, you take shelter of Krishna. This is going to be a much shorter than yesterday evening presentation with less complexity and different topics, making one point. This is going to be just, the very simple rendering of the 6 limbs of surrender. A little background. Everybody knows the most celebrated verse of Bhagavad Gita, the most important essential verse of Bhagavad Gita, Mam ekam sharanam vraja. Let's say the verse together. Sarvadharman parityajya Mam ekam sharanam vraja Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma suchaha. There we go. It just blinked. But you know the verse anyway. So, Mam ekam sharanam, for the topic today. Sharanam, taking shelter. Mam ekam sharanam, be alone. Take shelter, be alone. And the sarva dharman, that's plural. All varieties of dharma, they're not exactly tossed in the garbage can, because dharma, you don't do that with dharma, but they're subordinate to the superior principle of dharma, paradharma. Dharma is subordinate to paradharma. And if one doesn't understand paradharma, then they're not engaged in surrender. They may be engaged in dharma, artha, kama, moksha, those 4 purushartha principles. But then there's what goes beyond is missing, or the purpose of the first 4 is missing, because the first 4 are meant to, by design, they're parts of the Vedic system, so we don't prityaja, we don't throw away or discard the Vedas, the teachings of the Vedas and the principles, but they're subordinate to paradharma. Generally speaking, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the 4. Generally speaking, in this world, people are conditioned souls. And conditioned souls may or may not concern themselves with dharma. Those who concern themselves with dharma, they do so because they want artha. They do dharma because they want artha. And artha, in principle, means, by Sanskrit definition, it's something wanted. And for most people, that's something that's wanted is wealth, artha, money. They do something to get money, to get wealth, to get prosperity in this life and the next life. Dharma, artha. So, we know, I'm just embellishing a little bit, according to the teachings of Queen Kunti, there are 4 benefits that come within the artha category. Good birth, good beauty, good education, and wealth. And Queen Kunti prays, no thank you. I only want you. That's Mam Ekam. It's not like she's a sadhaka, she's at the stage of beyond that interest. She's a queen. So she has all of those benefits. But she's not interested in accumulating or in trying to be the enjoyer of those benefits. She's only interested in Krishna. That's Queen Kunti. And that's the message of this verse also. Sarvadharmam parityaja. Dharma, artha. And when people want artha, what do they want? They want sense gratification, kama. In different ways, it can be gross or subtle. The sense of achievement, the sense of recognition, the sense of something, 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 something. Enjoyment. Still on the physical plane or the material plane. And then when that is not fulfilling, the expectation of happiness isn't met by achieving those four things, then one wants to leave behind those four things and strive for liberation from those four things. That's the moksha idea. And therefore, all four are built within the Vedas. They're Vedic. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. That's Vedic. And then the moksha is the termination of the material pursuit and putting in its place of the spiritual pursuit. But the spiritual pursuit without bhakti and without the position of surrendering unto one who's the representative of the Supreme Person, then it stays on the material platform. Even it's called liberation. So let's dwell on this a little bit. Quiz question. You're all learning devotees. It's some, very experienced devotees. Is it possible to attain liberation without bhakti?
Yes.
Yes or no?
No.
No.
Who's going to say no? Please raise your hand. Who's going to say yes? Please raise your hand. I'm raising my hand. I'm in the yes department. And there's scriptural references for it. One may not be able to attain the permanent, complete, and stable position of parabhakti without bhakti, but one can achieve a happiness of liberation, freedom from cessation of material existence without bhakti. One can enter into the atmosphere of the Brahmajyoti without bhakti. And there's a Brahma Sukh, a spiritual happiness. That's another way of asking the question. Is there such a thing as spiritual happiness without bhakti? There's Brahma Sukh. For those persons who don't want bhakti, they don't want Bhagavan, they don't want a relationship with Bhagavan, but they want mitigation of the miseries and then some experience of this positive Brahman stage of reality. But, there's a but, according to the Bhagavatam, it's unstable. Aruya Krishnena Param Padam Tada Patantyato Nadvara Yushvat Ambraya. Those who achieve that can't stay there because they haven't taken shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, which means the happiness of being in a relationship with Bhagavan, in a mood of serving Bhagavan. So they fall from that position sooner or later. So all four, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, are again and again and again, many verses in the Bhagavatam where that attainment is, the offer of such an attainment of liberation is not at all attractive to the devotee. You know, one of the ways of saying why it's not at all attractive is it's already included in Bhakti. So why be attracted to that which is already included in Bhakti if you're not attracted to Bhakti? If you're attracted to Bhakti, you're not attracted to that which is already included in it. It's not an inspiration, it's not a carrot, it's not something that you pursue, because it's already included. The happiness, the contentment, the on the soul platform of being connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond the cessation of the sufferings of material existence. So saying the same thing in a different way. We're all trying to become devotees. To some degree, we're devotees, practicing at least sadhaka bhaktas, and trying like that. Do any of us, do each one of us, from time to time experience some suffering on the physical or the mental platform? Yes. It's part of where we are. We're in the material world because we didn't want the suffering, but we wanted the enjoyment, which invites suffering. Yehi samsparchaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate. It's very sensible. From the very beginning, this is Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, text, I think it's 21. As soon as one begins, it's also 7th canto Bhagavatam, same point. As soon as one begins the endeavor for finding happiness by senses contacting sense objects, immediately dukkha begins. The anticipation of happiness, samsparsha ja, bhoga, we all know what bhoga is. It's what's before it's offered to Krishna, that's bhoga. And once it's offered to Krishna with love and devotion, and Krishna accepts, then it's prasadam, no longer bhoga. But when there's bhoga, the anticipation of enjoying separate from Krishna by senses contacting sense objects, that's the birthplace. Yoni in Sanskrit means like the womb of a mother is a yoni. The place of birth is the yoni for dukkha is the anticipation of senses meeting sense objects. And so there's some happiness out there. We're conditioned souls, so we carry that idea by conditioning. And then you fill in the blank. If, da-da-da-da-da. And so we make a plan to do da-da-da-da-da-da. And then get punched in the nose. Ooh. I was expecting soup and I got punched in the nose. And then we do it again. Foolish. Donkey. Because there's a little carrot out there, it looks like. Krishna teaches the same thing to Uddhava in the Uddhava Gita section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 5. He says to Uddhava, there's a little sensation that is considered to be happiness, but it's a lure. And the amount of endeavor that it takes to get that little carrot at the end of the stick, carrying big load, working very hard to get the carrot at the end of the stick, get that little bit of happiness, is so much trouble. And then the little happiness is gone. Now you see it, now you don't. And it's so, therefore it's insubstantial. The now you see it, now you don't idea, or Maya idea, it's not substantial. A reflection of an image of something is not substantial. Very simple example. I use it all the time. Supposing you have a mirror, and supposing you have an apple, and then you hold up the mirror and you show the apple in the reflection. It's just a reflection. It looks like the apple, but it's not a real apple. It's a reflection. And turn the mirror a little bit, it's gone. Turn it back. Now there it is. It's insubstantial. And there's no nourishment for that apple or any other entity. There's no substance in the reflection. But it appears to be the real thing. That's Maya. Searching for happiness where there's no happiness. It's a reflection. It's something, but it's not what happiness is. And that's material life. So here we are, practicing to become sadhakas, to go away from the illusory. And so the dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, illusory position of happiness, and to seek instead the position of tangible, palpable happiness. That's this sharanam, the place of surrender. Abandon all varieties of religion, just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Master Chahal. So one of the things, there's two main things for people that are practitioners of Dharma. They want, and there's something they don't want. They don't want the bondage of sin. Not so long ago, maybe 10 days ago, I was in the University of Houston conducting a college program, and there was mainly it was grad students. There was a good turnout, but the grad students are, I found there's one fellow that appeared to be, his light was on. He wasn't raising his hand to ask a question, but I came and stood right next to him and said, "You're a thoughtful man. I'm sure you have a question," because you could tell. I could tell, anyways. And so he then said, "Yeah, I'm ruminating. You were speaking about the difference between Buddhism and Bhakti. And in Buddhism, Shunyavadi, there's the idea of making everything zero. And one of the ways that they engage to make things zero is they close their eyes. They shut their senses. So but there's a discipline, without going into the procedure, of winding down the interaction with the material elements, particularly with the idea of anticipating finding enjoyment over there, somewhere out there, and not having that anticipation. And I'll just, anyway, he asked a very, very pointed question. The Buddhists are also vegetarian. And you are also vegetarian. You're Krishna devotee. You're also vegetarian. Isn't, because one of the main platforms of Buddhism is ahimsa, non-violence. Isn't there violence in taking the life of non-vegetarian food, like vegetarian food, excuse me? There's violence. And there's consequence for taking the life of a vegetable. Less severe reaction than taking the life of a fish or a chicken. Gosh, on the way up here, it took a long time to get from Virginia to, it took, the GPS said 4 hours and it took almost 5. And one of the things, there was a lot of traffic, and one of the things right next to us for a whole long stretch, big truckload of chickens. They're in these, it's very cruel, what to speak of what's going to happen afterward. They're just in these plastic things, so they could, you could see their feathers flying in the wind, and there they are cramped up, and they're taken off to a place where they're going to be chopped. So it's fresh, or whatever the reason was. I don't know what the reason is. And we know, and there's karma for the one that drives the truck, for the one that raises the chicken, the one that chops the chicken, the one that cooks the chicken, the one that eats the chicken. And there's lots of chicken places. So, there's lots of karma. So it's more severe than being vegetarian. But so the question he was asking was, this grad student at the University of Houston, isn't there karma? Yes. And then what to do? Because isn't it that, he just said what's in the Vedas. But he didn't know the verse. But our subsistence is at the expense of other living entities. Jivo jiva sajivanam. One living entity subsists at the expense of another living entity. So the living entity sacrifices their life for another living entity. And they don't really have a choice. Their life is sacrificed. Then there's karma for being vegetarian. Less severe than the karma of other things. Fish and chicken and things so something that even grain. But so without all the explanation, life is taken. And there's consequence. So the difference is something is offered to Krishna. Mame kam. Sharanam. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Saham tam sarva papibhyo moksha yishyami. That's beyond moksha. The negation sense of moksha. So beyond the negation sense of moksha is being in relationship with Krishna and acting for the satisfaction of Krishna. That's beyond the negation kind of moksha. Cessation of material misery by negation of material misery. No such thing. It's not really the case. So, the Sankirtan process of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the yagya, the yuga dharma, for this age of Kali, to engage people in becoming freed from karma, but experiencing higher and higher and higher stages of bhakti. So it's a very old painting. This is showing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing, and Gadadhar and Nityananda and Advaita Acharya dancing and dancing. and then some person's falling on the ground. Some person's falling on the ground in ecstasy of devotion, not even knowing where they are. With musical instruments and doing things that people like to do in any culture of the world, but with the focus on the personality of Godhead. So that's beyond moksha, or beyond the cessation of material existence. So here are the 6 divisions. They're called angas, or limbs, of surrender. And so, anukoyasya sankalpa, that's the first one. Accepting things that are favorable to devotional service. Pratikoyasya varjana, reject things that are unfavorable to devotional service. So, free will doesn't become zero. Free will becomes very active, or not becomes, remains very active, and is focused on that which is going to enhance Bhakti. And that's one of the principal limbs of surrender. Accept things favorable, reject things unfavorable. And then conviction that Krishna will give protection. Because this is one of the causes of material existence is identification with the body. One receives the body because I wanted to enjoy Prakriti, wanted to enjoy material nature. And so body is awarded to that living entity who wanted to enjoy material nature according to their guna and karma. They get a body corresponding. And with that comes fear. And because I want to protect my body. And my body is the instrument for my enjoyment. Thank you very much for material nature, for providing me with this body. And now I'm fearful that I may lose it, so I have to protect it. I'm tempted to bring up this guns question. Is it appropriate? Somewhere in some circles, there's some devotees asking the question. I've never been asked this question before, but someone was asking the question. Is it okay for a devotee to have a gun? And then, so in Krishna's service, there's nothing that can't be accepted. But where is it in Krishna's service? So I gave an example. Here's an example. Many years ago, in Mayapur, they got a gun. They got a gun because there were brass, at that particular time, there were just very small brass deities that were golden looking. They're brass. But some of the locals that are poor people, they thought, oh. So in the dead of night, they broke in and took the deities off the altar and were running. And as they were running, some devotees started yelling. Somebody woke up and heard them running. They started yelling. And so there was 15,000 Hare Krishna guys running after the bandits. And one of the brave ones was Bhakti Swami. And he got half of his leg shot off with a shotgun. And, so to this day, he has 1.5 legs. And, a pair of crutches. So from that time, they got a gun. Because, it's not the Wild West, it's Mayapur. It's wilder than the Wild West in certain ways. So they got a gun. But, there was practical purpose for that. But in many ways that the devotees live, there may be some farm community somewhere that who knows? I don't know if it's a fact, but I would guess in New Vrindavan they have a gun. And there's probably some persons authorized and otherwise no. Most of devotees living in suburbia don't need a gun. You have a phone. Everyone's got at least one, if not five, and you call 911. And generally, they're very responsive. So, police are there to protect. But supposing you want to make so protection is a material necessity, physical and emotional protection, because that's the whole topic. What does protection mean? Mami kam shadaram. What does protection mean? Another extended topic. There's some ladies in the room, and I'm used to the fact when I cough, the ladies are going to go, "Oh no, he's got a cough." So here's some update. Some days ago, I had a cough, and blowing my nose, and it was just one of those things. And then the cough is kind of lingering a little bit. It's not. It's at the stage where it's called dry cough. And the dry coughs can go on for weeks and months. And I advise you, don't take medication for it, because I did. And it was a big mistake. It sent my head in a tizzy. Don't take dry cough medication. You'll have a bigger problem than the cough. So just don't bother me, just let me do my thing and be happy, please. Okay. Connection to Krishna will give me protection. And material, spiritual, and physical, mental. It's not that if Krishna will give protection, you're never going to die, you're never going to get old, you're never going to get disease. You don't worry about that. That's not what the promise is. But the protection is descending down to the lower species of life, or meeting the Prabhupada's words, meeting the Yamadutas. You're protected. You become a devotee. Krishna will protect you from that. And if there's emotional or other mental difficulties, try your best to take shelter of Krishna, because Krishna's protection will be there. And you'll feel Krishna's protection. And if you're in that safe position, being under Krishna's protection, you don't have to worry. I mean, you can worry if you want to worry, but there's no need, because you're under Krishna's protection. Mind and body. Then the final three. The acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master. Now that kind of goes without saying, because surrender means you're subordinate, there's a master, and you're surrendering to the master. And the master wants, and so you do what the master wants. End of story. Even if you don't want it. Because we just experienced Ram Navami celebration. I mentioned it yesterday evening. There's many places where Krishna's own brother had to do what he didn't want to do. Or other devotees of Ramachandra had to do what Ramachandra wanted, although they didn't want. Sending Sita to the forest because of gossip when she was pregnant. And the chariot driver, Sumantra, had to do the duty of taking Sita in his chariot along with Ram's brother, and off they go into the forest to take pregnant Sita to Valmiki's ashram. They didn't want to do it, but Ramchandra wanted them to do it, so they did it. And in the court, the Valmiki Ramayana describes the conversation on the way. You know, many things. Who can understand the will of the Supreme Lord kind of discussion. And then this historical example, that historical example, where the fulfillment of life's mission is to do what the Supreme Lord wants. And how fortunate we are to have that intimacy of our relationship. And then all the way back, feeling sorrow. Because there's so much sorrow within Ramayana. Like abundant sorrow. But he's my guardian, he's my master, and what he wants, that's it. Even if I'm uncomfortable, that's it. And feeling very secure in that position, not without doubt, Masucha. Full self-surrender and humility, because this is at the end of the list of 6, and that's where we started yesterday, because that's a good place to start. The platform of surrender begins with that humility. Therefore, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we had some reference to him yesterday, he, in his songs of Sharanagati, there's like 6 to 8 songs on each one of these 6 limbs of surrender, and he starts with the first one. He starts with humility. It has many things to sing or to write about. Humility precedes surrender. There isn't going to be surrender without humility. There isn't going to be a relationship without that submission, because he's the Supreme. Just like, it's another nice example, just like Krishna and Arjuna, they're friends. But by the Lord's influence, Arjuna became more inclined in the friendships department and less inclined in the service department. In fact, he kind of lost it by Yogamaya's influence, and started lamenting to not do what Krishna wants, giving his reasons. Now that's Arjuna, and we may do the same thing for our, laps. Not Yogamaya. But that's, the influence of forgetfulness can eclipse the relationship of the divine nature of the relationship. There's a nice, here's a for example. There's a nice for example. How are we, any one of us in the room here, how are we to know when we're doing something and we're feeling something, is that something that we're doing or something that we're feeling, is it genuine or is it not so genuine? Maybe, speculative or emotional or, not spiritually substantial. question. So that question is addressed by Jiva Goswami in his Bhakti Sandarbha, and then the simple answer is from Guru Sadhu Shastra. You can verify, is this mere sentiment, or is it something genuine and to be taken as something genuine? And interestingly, he gives a little example. When you're worshiping the deity, you don't kiss the deity. You develop a very warm, personal, loving relationship with your deity. But there's certain behaviors that are not to be done. And from Guru Sadhu Shastra. And if you don't know Shastra, you better have a guru that knows Shastra. And be guided by it, or become knowledgeable in Shastra, at least certain elements of what's to be done, what's not to be done. Is this in the category of something that's authentic and genuine? Or is it just sentiment? We're protected by that platform of genuine surrender with proper guidance. Therefore, many things. Therefore, let's say few things. Read Prabhupada's books. And then in Prabhupada's books, they'll make references depending upon which book you're reading. For example, Chaitanya Charitamrita gives many references from the writings of the Goswamis and our predecessor acharyas. To a lesser degree in Bhagavad Gita, and even somewhere in between in the Bhagavatam, but when you read those literatures, you're getting Prabhupada's for our sake, authorization that this is a genuine text, we can take it seriously. Such and such and such and such. And then, as you go along in your Hare Krishna life, you'll probably come across situations like this. I heard in a class one day, blah, 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 blah. Is it true? Or something like that. You follow? So, my advice to somebody that asks a question like that, when you hear this in a class, not being disrespectful, with all respect, you can ask, what's the reference? This is very interesting. Is there a scriptural reference for this? And they'll say, well, I something. I don't know where it is, but I heard it. So I'm repeating what I heard. That's what I'm doing. Anyway, some people aren't so honest. And some people are very honest. Yeah, I heard it in a class from so-and-so Swami who's not an ISKCON devotee. And they're repeating it. And it floats around. So, why am I doing this? We need proper guidance. Guru Sadhu Shastra. And then we're protected. In this principle, the platform of surrender and taking shelter, which is, go back to yesterday's class, true humility precedes true bhakti. So when there's true humility, there has to be also discrimination between what's a place of shelter, what's not. What's a place worthy of submission unto and not. We had this discussion yesterday evening during class. So purposefully, I'll end. Purposefully, there was a plan to have a shorter class for different reasons. In part because it's Saturday and there's a lot going on for many of us, myself included. You all came from somewhere, and you're probably going to go back to that same somewhere. And I'm going off to Connecticut and then Boston. international travel. So I'm going to end class and see if there's some discussion, but I invite some meaningful discussion from the devotees in the room so we can churn the topic more completely.
Maharaj, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear. I'm just looking at this nice devotee that wants to take the microphone from you and take it to the next person. He likes that service. He's very enthusiastic too. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. A few thoughts. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for giving the lecture, although you are a little bit under the weather.
Yeah,
I think it's a sacrifice and a penance. And I feel like this the six limbs you talk about, they are I feel like they're more internal state of being, not necessarily observable or obvious from outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an internal things that you cultivate, and the external may appear to be the opposite, but the internal is going in a functioning on another platform. And I see them as three pairs. Like the first two, they are related, and the middle two,
yes,
they are related, and the last two, they are related. Like
yes.
and within each of that pairs is kind of they're mutually complementing each other in the meaning. Say you accept things that are variable, and you reject things that are unbearable, and I think that's quite logically a very logical way of express. And then I see the I think a little bit the first two pairs are relatively more easier to understand, but the last one, the 5 and 6, I feel the self-surrender and humility is a little bit more abstract than the first two pairs, like how they are mutually complementing and supporting each other to complete a concept. And I just did a quick search of that. I just saw it's kind of in a Chaitanya Charitamrita verse, and I saw that humility. The word for humility is karpanya, and it's interesting because that word in Bhagavad Gita 2.7 is karpanya dosho. That word is used in that context, and that in that context, the karpanya is a dosha, a fault, and here is a positive thing, and in that Bhagavad Gita verse, if my memory is correct, like there in the purport there are some explanation by Srila Prabhupada to kind of link that word with kripana. Like kripana, that karpanya is derived from kripana, and kripana means miser. Yeah. And Srila Prabhupada often, not often, but sometimes he would contrast that kripana with brahmana to explain. And so that karpanya, I feel like it's more kind of a state of poverty.
A state of
poverty, poor, being very, very
poverty,
poor.
Okay.
Like you're just so poor that you have nothing to offer. And I think that just kind of helped me understand a little bit about the context here. Full surrender, and at the same time you feel you are so poor. and yeah, that's a little bit thoughts on this. And I know you expand a little bit on the humility. I haven't heard the lecture yesterday, but I feel humility, at least in Bhagavad Gita, what straight from my mind is the humility word is kind of one corresponding to that one is Vinaya. Vinaya is Vidya Vinaya Sampante, yeah. And then another one is the Amanitvam in chapter 13. Is one of the knowledge, and I just feel like this word is kind of so rich, because like Kartanya here is kind of a state of poverty, a state of being poor, and in that Vinaya context is more like you've been a very learned kind of it's a kind of refinement. It's a refinement, like you as a well-educated, well-trained behavior, like a learned sage, as he is very humble, and then in that amanitva, in amanitvam context, it's more like amanitvam is more like you don't think high of yourself. Yeah, I think that's quite interesting, because they're very different. They're very rich meaning about this humility. Thank you so much.
She has a different pair of ears than most of us. Several things. Translating from Sanskrit to English, there's a lot lost. In the sense that Sanskrit words have subtlety, and then the translation into English, it may be the same word as the other word, as the other word, as the other word, and there's loss in the translation because the subtlety is missed. So you go the other way, you take the English and then go back to the subtlety, and then you start to discover the subtlety. And then different words can mean different things. And they may be connected even in terms of root or dhatu with another word that has a very different or opposite meaning. So therefore the translator from Sanskrit to English you have to find the best translator. And Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta and our acharyas are gifted by Krishna to be able to give the right meaning in English, so that when we're reading the English, we may not get all of these details of it could mean this or it could mean that kind of subtlety, but we get the essence. And which, for those of us that don't have ears like she has, you can become, when you become familiar with Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and scriptural texts, reading something just that it has just a plain vanilla rendering, you can go more deeply and go more deeply and go more deeply into the subtleties of the meanings. And that's often where there's a special taste or rasa that comes into play. So if those of you that didn't understand all of what she said, don't worry about it. But one can look forward to that day when becoming conscientious in reading the original text as well as the English translation has its merit of flavor and relish of rasa that from, the original writing, that the plain vanilla didn't give you just by reading the plain vanilla. There's subtleties, and subtleties are often found in Sanskrit words, and it's nice to learn and to appreciate, go down the path a little bit, just like these different words that mean karpanya or dainya. They're different sounding words, but they can have very different meanings. But the English is just humility. So she's not specifically raising questions, just like she's enjoying and sharing the meanings of words and enjoying the differences of meanings of words. And some of us are shrugging shoulders, thinking, okay. May that day come for all of us when our reading becomes a little more on the subtle side, a little more appreciating not just the English translation, the plain vanilla version, but the subtleties, and then compare this subtlety to that subtlety, and there's enjoyment. There's why did such and such an author, why did Krishnadas Kaviraj choose this word, and why did Bhaktivinoda Thakur choose that word? Or say the same question a different way. What was the intention? When the author writes something, is there something they intend to communicate? A realization or an experience they wish to communicate? And what is that? So rather than, I'm recommending, rather than just information, and then, become familiar with the information, go beyond that, or on the other side of that is, from the author's side, there's a relationship between you and the author. What's the author wishing to communicate? And contemplate, and can continue to contemplate. And then some understandings will come that aren't just from the plain vanilla. And the light goes on. This great Acharya, he wanted to communicate, he had this epiphany, this realization, and he wanted to communicate it, so he did it in this way. That's why this took this choice of words instead of that. And then it's a relationship with the author and the message from the author to the reader, you. It's a relationship. Bhakti is that kind of experience. It's a little bit more. It's in the graduate study level of reading Prabhupada's books and reading from the acharyas, reading other things. It's graduate level, and there's deeper relish and different realizations that are being shared by the author to you, the reader. That's a long blah 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 session. Let's see if there's some other comments and questions. Acharya, okay. Vedana. How'd you get in the door? Downstairs. No, downstairs. How'd you get in? Yeah.
Oh, there's a button, you can press it, like looks like at an intercom, and you just press it. It says call, but they see you, I think, and they just let you right up.
Oh, really?
And then Subhamana also calls, literally with the phone. So we did both. I'm not
Congratulations.
sure which was the more effective.
I I stood outside for a little while before we got in. I didn't have a code, but okay. I'm just curious how people get in here if they don't. This is Jersey City. You got to be careful. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. So, that's Hare Krishna.
There.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, that's much better.
Thank you so much. So this slide here, and you're speaking about these 6 divisions of surrender, and for each of them, but particularly as we're hearing in the last comment, the last couple, surrender, humility, maybe the Sanskrit idea is really the act of being humble. English word is humility. So for these two, self-surrender, humility, these are action. These are concepts for a devotee to take action, the highest action in connection with Lord Krishna. And so my question is, I'm trying to understand better the interplay between a devotee doing so, surrendering, acting humble, and they're getting the mercy of Krishna, because we understand that only by the mercy of Krishna can one understand Krishna and be a devotee of Krishna.
Right.
So I was wondering if you can discuss that a little bit, please.
Well, I was with you till the punchline of the question, but I didn't. Did you hear the punchline again?
Okay.
Just not the whole preamble, just the punchline.
Sorry, Maharaj. Yeah, I'm wondering, so, it's almost like so many things in Krishna consciousness, it almost seems like a catch-22. You can't do anything without the mercy of Krishna, but you can't get the mercy of Krishna unless you surrender to Krishna. So I'm just kind of, ultimately the answer is, I guess you have to be transcendental, since you have an eternal relationship with Krishna. That's who you are anyway. So,
well, the simple solution is a spiritual master. The point of contact of connecting with Krishna is the spiritual master, and through the medium of the spiritual master, magic happens. The connection with Krishna, and that's a prerequisite. It's a prerequisite. It's not approach Krishna. This is the same discussion as yesterday with Ekalavya. Same discussion. And I hope you were able to forward the Bhakti Siddhanta comment. Did you Narotama, did you get a copy of that document?
No, Maharaj.
Bhakti Siddhanta's comment on the Ekalavya story?
No, Maharaj.
You didn't get it. He's just now sending it to you. So, the punchline is, yes, he Ekalavya, got skill, but it was by usurping, not by mercy. He acted again, deliberately, belligerently, against the order of the person who he got instruction from and skill from, and it was taken from him. Not only his thumb, but later Krishna finished him. That's further in Mahabharata. Ekalavya lost his life because there was a transgression of a principle of how to get the mercy that comes from a devotee of Krishna without the mercy of the devotee of Krishna. So there's laws of nature and spiritual laws. So back to your question. The catch-22 kind of question. You can't get mercy without surrendering. Without surrendering, how are you going to get the mercy? So there's the via media, the mystery personality, the spiritual master. And then there's factual submission to and acceptance by. And that's the mystery self. And without that, the approach to Krishna doesn't happen. A classic, Ramayana classic, is Vibhishan. When he surrendered, he didn't surrender to Ramachandra directly. He surrendered to representative of Ramachandra, Sugriva. Sugriva, can you carry a message to Ramachandra? I've come to surrender to him. Will he accept me? Messenger. Now, Sugriva is not guru, but he's the representative of. And, Sugriva, being Sugriva, he had been, mistreated by Bali so many times in so many ways, and he was like, I don't trust this guy. And he's got this motive and that motive, the other motive, and, I don't trust him. And Ramchandra, put up blockades, and I still don't trust him. Hanuman says, there's nothing to talk about. He's already accepted him, because it's his nature. So he accepted him. He asked Sugriva, go back and inform him, I've accepted him. And then right there, they performed Abhishek, and he became the successor to Ravana in his kingdom, in Lanka. Right there. That's how far he went, not just accepting. So, and then later after the battle, another coronation, another Abhishek, another, Vibhishan became the king of Lanka to replace Ravana. So, acceptance through the medium of, that's the catch-22 part. It must be. And don't go the path of Ekalavya. It's problematic. Even you may have skills. It's problematic. Krishna doesn't like. Krishna, you read this article, it doesn't give the Mahabharata reference of how Krishna killed him, and Krishna killed him later. Drona took his thumb, and Krishna killed him. So he's not a person of character. And therefore, he wasn't a fit person to be a student. But he did it anyways. To access through the medium of a representative. It's okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, up front.
It was about Lord Rama when he gave the instruction to take Sita to the forest. And many people was everybody like didn't feel like it's the right thing, but they still do it and take it to the forest.
They do what?
They take Sita to the forest to Bhavniki.
Yeah. So, you have
So
a
the
problem with
point-
that?
so
You saying some people have a problem, or you have a problem?
No, it's like you was discussing like some like Lachman or
A
something.
servant has sometimes to do something that they're uncomfortable with,
Uncomfortable.
but if this master wants, that's it.
So the question is, sometime we want to do we own stuff, and we've been trapped into illusion or Maya. You was mentioning, and sometimes
That's the
it's
problem.
very easy to fall in the trap. And can we explain a little more about the trap where everybody fall into?
Okay, so now what?
So how we fall easily and want to do we own thing in the trap of
How does it happen to fall into Maya?
this
Just close
trap?
your eyes.
Because
Krishna goes away, and that's all there is Maya.
It's very easy for people fall into this.
Yeah. And therefore, we need persons who will remind us, and when we start heading for the ditch, they're going to tap us on the shoulder and say, "Wake up! You're heading for the ditch." Oh. Behind you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj Ji. In certain situations, when you're going through some personal loss or
Loss.
Someone that is dear to you, it's often difficult to feel surrendered. How do we progress in our process of surrendering while still honoring our human emotions like grief?
Good. Excellent question. In one word, it's faith. But faith. Unpack what's faith, and it's a relationship where there's genuine shelter. So grief or loss is in the realm of the temporary, and then ideally we have a place of shelter that's beyond the temporary. So as to the degree that one has shelter in what's beyond the temporary, the loss on the temporary side is you bear it because it's part of the covering, the mind and body covering, and you tolerate it because it's part of being embodied. Step back. I'm going through a period of difficulty because of loss, and I know that there's transcendence. I know that there's a place of shelter, but I'm navigating this territory where I'm having some emotions, a feeling of loss, which is your question. So now, how do I handle that? What's the best? What's some recommendations for handling a situation like that? Step back, pause, reflect, mode of goodness, move away from the other two modes, the expectation of happiness through contact with senses and objects, and then the devastation, whatever that particular loss was, destruction, something that was there isn't there anymore. So strive to go to a place of goodness, and be reflective on the situation. So what's changing here is the temporary. The eternal hasn't changed because it's eternal. To the degree that I can do so, this may very well be an opportunity for me in this moment of loss and emotion of loss to take deeper shelter of the eternal. And those ways that I have learned that help me feel connected to the eternal are these three things. So let me invest in some of those three things. As a Shakti or a resource, a spiritual potency that can not just take away the emotion of loss or cover it over and make it, whitewash it and cosmetic it. It's just connect with the eternal. So to endure the temporary better by being better connected. Saying the same thing a different way. Turn the dimmer switch up. When the light goes on, the darkness is dispelled. So what is it that, for me personally, helps me experience a sense of connection? And your age is mature enough. I'm sure you can make a little list this is the reflection space. What are some of those things that help me feel very connected when I'm not going through this period of loss? What are those things that help me feel very connected, that give me confidence in that relationship with the source? And there, maybe one thing or a few things, and let me invest thoughtfully in some of those few things. And it's not going to take away the loss. It's still what it is. But its prominence diminishes because the prominence of connection has become brighter. The loss may have blocked that connection. Negative emotion. And so in that negative emotion space, I'm not feeling that connection as much as I would be, should be, was before this loss. And long term, because there's going to be more losses awaiting me, what is it that I can do as time passes that can make the dimmer switch up, the connection with the Supreme vibrant? And who are persons with whom I can associate that can accelerate? This is accepting things favorable, in the same list over here. Association with those that are well connected and are consistently of that character. I want closer association with those persons, and do things with those persons, and serve those persons, and look up to those persons. Same kind of topic we were speaking yesterday. And thereby take on qualities like those persons, so that going into the future, the other interruptions or disturbances or senses of loss on the temporary side will be less problematic emotionally and experientially, so I can stay connected better going forward in time. There's a saying, it is true, that when difficulties come, in one sense it's very bad, it doesn't feel good, but it can also be an impetus to take deeper shelter. And taken the right way, that's exactly what happens. I need deeper shelter. I was unprepared for this loss. Although loss is guaranteed, I was unprepared. Now, it's an impetus for me to go the other direction. Besides just get lost in the loss and the negative emotion spiral. I don't know the situation, but I can imagine it's not easy. So, that's life. Someone else. We're going to run out of time soon. So if anybody wants a final question or two.
When I look at the six stages of, or six divisions of surrender as you titled it, I love the way Nandimukhi summarized it in 3 couplets.
Yes.
And for me, I feel I've always been on the 1 and the 2. And like she said, the practice or the application of this is subtle, and to understand where one is in their own practice of applying these principles is, at least for me, it's difficult to assess.
Difficult to
assess where, like, at what stage I am in practicing these, because they are so subtle. And I understand the later part, that wherever I am, from there to go the next step, like you mentioned yesterday, that look up to somebody
Yeah.
who is there and then serve them. Yet my question is, from time to time it is necessary or recommended to assess where one is.
Yeah.
So, what's a
What to do?
how do we assess where one is in one's own practice of applying these principles, given that they are so subtle?
Well, I'll recommend two things, but one of them you do already, and his name is Nityananda Pran. That's your go-to person. And if you get like I'm in the forest, Nityananda Pran, help me. He's got radar. He knows where you are, and he'll give you practical steps because of that relationship, and it's very meaningful, substantial, palpable, etc. No, but that's not exactly what your question is, but it's an answer to your question. You have a go-to person that is very dear to you and vice versa, and he'll help you. So, what are the tools? The main question is, what are the tools? And how do you go about the process of assessing? A few key words: sustainability and sincerity. So, how am I doing? How do I assess? On my path of bhakti, is what I am striving for a reasonable goal, and am I being reasonably consistent? Not always, but reasonably consistent in sustainability. And is there something that is a doable increment that I can go the next step if I apply myself properly? And so you evaluate those things, sustainability. And if there's something I'm doing, let's say I know some people that are not chanting 16 rounds. So I'm at whatever the number is. I'm at 8 or I'm at 10 or whatever the number is. Are you maintaining it? So this is the assessment. Are you maintaining it? Is there something in your lifestyle that you could bump it up a little bit? From 8 to 10, from 10 to 12, or something, whatever it is. And is it sustainable? So that's a tracking of your progress. Sustainability. And another is, Prabhupada's nice word, sincere. Not cosmetic. So that's another topic for another day. But what does sincere mean? And Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami give very clear definitions of what it is and what it isn't. That's another class. But that's an answer to how do you track it. Am I being sincere? I mean, sufficiently sincere in maintaining sustainability and going whatever is the next possible maintainable, sustainable step for me. And it's not just you, it's any one of us. Where are we? And is there something that sincere, with sincerity, we can in fact make another incremental step? With somebody helping us, supporting us, holding our hand, whatever. Is it so? Sincerely, I want to make that effort to go the next step. Those are some tools. I think I'd like to end. Is anybody upset with me if I end? Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.